What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I dropped 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go!
Hey Stewart, you are watching 40 Days, 40 Nights with your boy EJ Stewart, where I do 2 live stream shows per day, 1 in the morning at 8 a.m., 1 in the morning at 6 p.m., and we have a lot to talk about on today's show. We're going to be talking about the big news coming out of the NBA, which is Jayson Tatum's return is all but official. We got the word from Shams Charania at ESPN that Jayson Tatum will be making his return from his Achilles tear Friday against the Dallas Mavericks. So we talked a little bit about it last night with the reporting from Chris Mannix and others saying that Jayson Tatum was getting very close and that there was a chance it could be as early as Dallas, but if it wasn't the Dallas game, it could be sometime soon after that. We now know that Jayson Tatum will be back with the Boston Celtics in the lineup Friday night. Now the question is, how good can the Celtics be with Tatum? What will be the growing pains with that? We're going to break that down and give you my feelings on where the Celtics go from here. Not that their superstar Team USA gold medalist, though he didn't seem very happy with that team, and an all-around NBA champion, Jayson Tatum, is now back with the Boston Celtics. We also got to get into some BS that came out today, which was Jayson Tatum's trainer, Drew Hanlen, who took great offense to some advice and commentary from one Carmelo Anthony, NBA Hall of Famer, NCAA champion, NBA scoring champion Carmelo Anthony, about how he thinks Jayson Tatum needs to approach his return from his Achilles injury. And Drew Hanlen wanted to take it upon himself to disrespect Carmelo Anthony. And we're going to talk about those comments in a little bit as well. We'll also talk about some stuff happening in the NBA involving the Golden State Warriors. Interesting comments from one, Steve Kerr, who was on local radio in Golden State, or I guess in the Bay Area, where the Golden State Warriors play, obviously, in the Bay Area, defending his record when it comes to the development of young players. One of the big criticisms of the Golden State Warriors dynasty has been their inability to bring in young talent and cultivate them into their championship formula. And now you look at a Warriors team that appears to be careening off a cliff when it comes to the lack of young talent to build around as Steph and Draymond Green enter the twilights of their careers. Steve Kerr defends a little bit of his record, defends a little bit of how the Warriors have operated in some recent comments. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And a pretty big day in the NFL. Some big stars on the move. So you got DJ Moore. He was traded this morning right after our show ended. He goes from the Chicago Bears to the Buffalo Bills. We'll break down that trade. We also have a all-time sacks leader for one NFL franchise who's going to be saying goodbye soon as well to his team. And we got a lot to talk about when it comes to the World Baseball Classic, which is starting up, and damn it, I'm in. I love the World Baseball Classic. I think it's a good thing for Major League Baseball and for the sport of baseball and just for sports in general. Are you in? Are you out? I want to know what you think about the WBC. I'm going to give you my reasons why you should watch it. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I can't wait for this show. 40 Days, 40 Nights with your boy EJ Stewart, streaming live multiple spots, including live on YouTube, New Generation Media. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. Also streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart, where you'll find me on X, and streaming live on Instagram, Action EJ. So make sure you follow me wherever I'm at, subscribe wherever I'm at, and of course, all episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights, along with all content related to New Generation Media, gets podcasted on our podcast channel. Just search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. You can get these episodes, the final episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights. You know, as you can see on the top right screen, if you're watching this episode, we are on night number 39, which means this is the penultimate night of 40 Days and 40 Nights. It's been a crazy journey. It's crazy that we're here, but we are here. We're nearing the end here. But if you want to listen to this episode, or any other episode that we've posted, along with all the content that comes with New Generation Media, that includes Hero Talk, that includes Sports Talk, that includes our Star Wars podcast, The Imperial Broadcast, that includes our wrestling podcast, Off Script. All of those episodes live on the New Generation Podcast Network. Just search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts. So let's get the ball rolling, man. Let's talk about what's happened with Jayson Tatum, who's back. Jayson Tatum, according to sources to Shams Charania and ESPN, will make his return to the Celtics, coming off an Achilles tear Friday versus the Mavericks. So you'll remember, quite infamously last year how his season ended. They're playing a highly competitive series with the New York Knicks, on the verge of being down 3-1 in that series late in the fourth quarter. Jayson Tatum lunges for a ball, falls to the ground immediately. Immediately, you kind of see him grabbing the back of his leg, and you kind of start thinking the worst for a non-contact injury. The worst image I think that we have in sports currently is the reverberating calf. I don't know if it's the high-definition cameras, the 4K cameras, or the zoom-ins. I don't know what it is, but there are guys who have torn their Achilles for years and years and years, and we never associated it with a reverberating calf. But ever since Kevin Durant tore an Achilles and everybody zoomed in on his calf and saw his calf reverberate in a very violent way right before he went down in the NBA Finals against the Toronto Raptors, it seems like every one of these injuries, you see that same calf reverberation that is just, you just know that it's a bad sign. We've seen it with Aaron Rodgers. We saw it this postseason with George Kittle. We saw it with Tyrese Halliburton a few weeks, months later, less than a month later. When you see it, and we saw it with Tatum, and he went down a heap, and he was done. He was done for the rest of the playoffs, obviously done for the season, and he got surgery on this torn Achilles less than 24 hours after it happened. That same day, he goes into the hospital, goes to the special HHS, one of the most renowned hospitals when it comes to surgeries, and he gets repaired immediately, and he gets right into the rehab process. And the goal was for him to try to get back as early as possible so he can help his Celtics team not have a gap year, not be in a situation where it's like, well, we're just, call this one a day, and we lost Tatum, we can't expect to come back and compete next year. The hope was for him to make a comeback early enough with the team still in contention for the Celtics to then make a real championship push with Tatum back. And sure enough, because of how well the Celtics have played, not just obviously the exploits of Jaylen Brown, who has been an absolute superstar for them this season. I don't know if he's a superstar player, but he has played like a superstar. There's no question about that. His scoring, his ability both ways, he's had an awesome season. It's why he's an MVP candidate. The Celtics are the second best team in the Eastern Conference when it comes to record. And now they sit here only 5 games or so back of the Detroit Pistons, and Jayson Tatum, who I think there were some doubts about whether or not he really could pull this off. Would he really be able to come back in enough time for him to make a real impact on this season? Now with about 16, 17 games left, here he comes to potentially maybe save the day for the Celtics and make them a serious, serious threat and add a complete different wrinkle to this Eastern Conference playoffs with now a former All-NBA caliber guy joining the fray for the Boston Celtics. So Shams Charania says a minutes restriction, at least to start, is to be expected. We have no word on whether or not he's going to be coming off the bench or starting or anything like that. But Tatum is going to be back. I think in terms of how I see this, I'm going to take the onus of what I've heard from medical experts, particularly the great Doc Rock Positano, who's good friends with Andrew Perloff, and has, of course, been on the Maggie and Perloff show. He has done foot surgeries and worked with professional athletes for decades and decades and decades. And it's what he and many others who are in the medical field, who specialize with ankles and Achilles and feet, will tell you, which is, it is not a one-year injury. Yes, it is a one-year injury in the sense that you can then return to playing and going out there and even having maybe some modicum of success. But in order for you to feel more like yourself and closer to like yourself, to really fully recover from that injury, it really is more of a 2-year injury. And it's why you saw Kevin Durant, after he tore his Achilles with the Warriors, came into that first year with the Brooklyn Nets and just did not play. He just didn't play. You didn't see him take one dribble, one shot, one anything. He may have worked out with the team, but he didn't play. And then when he came back the following year and played, and I think there was questions of like, what's he gonna look like? He looked like the same damn Kevin Durant. He looked awesome. I was like, oh my God, this is how guys look like coming from Achilles. It's like, well, he took the 2 years to fully get right, and then he got right, and he's been, the same Kevin Durant pretty much ever since. And then we saw the flip side with someone like Aaron Rodgers, who was fighting to get back even within the same season he tore his Achilles, which was insane. Now we know for sure. We knew it then. Maybe he didn't know it, but everyone else who had a brain knew how insane it was that he can come back from an Achilles tear in 4 months. But we saw him try to, come back and play, which again, you can come back and play. It's not like you can't play after 1 year, but he tries to come back and play the next year. Obviously an older player, but still, like, he was not the same. He couldn't move. He was a sitting duck, and we didn't see the right Aaron Rodgers. He didn't seem to start to get his legs underneath him until towards the end of the season. Ironically, of course, that's when the Jets were already out of it. And then we see him this year with the Steelers, and he's an old guy, so it wasn't like he was lighting the world on fire, but he had some really good moments. He played good football, and he looked way more spry, way more agile. He just looked overall much better. So my expectations for Jayson Tatum are very low. I don't expect him to come in and just change life for the Boston Celtics in terms of now a team that had, maybe you put their championship odds at like here, now that it goes here. Which in theory, if Jayson Tatum was a guy who just take his resume, take what he brings to the floor when he's 100% healthy, and you drop them on the team, I would say, yeah, the Celtics now are a serious threat to once again compete for an NBA championship, because they've already won one with Tatum and Brown, and the pieces that they've put together, Kada, Shireman, Walsh, Hugo Gonzalez, that these guys have stepped up in a major way, and they look like real confident NBA players that are filling the roles exactly the way they need to for this team to be highly successful. You add fully healthy and fully intact Jayson Tatum, I'm saying, yeah, everybody in the East should be very concerned. I don't sit here today and say that as a Knicks fan, or if you're an Eastern Conference contender, a fan of any of those teams, I don't think you sit here and say I'm super concerned about the Celtics at this point in time. I actually thought Tatum should have just sat out the whole year. That's just how I felt. This was not a guy who tore his Achilles in last January or sometime during the season in December or February or early. He tore his Achilles deep into the playoffs, like deep into the second round of the playoffs. And now I'm supposed to think he's supposed to be good, essentially. Like I said, we're talking about 9 to 10 months prior, post that injury. I'll believe it when I see it. I do think that he's on a good team in a good situation, that if he is willing to acquiesce to what it's going to take to get him back to full strength, that he should be able to fit in well with this squad, because he won't be asked to carry the brunt of the load. Like some of these guys, when it comes to playing for these kind of teams, when you're a star player, you get injured and then you come back. The hope is that you just come back and you're just ready to be the top dog and the leader of the team again. And that's not always the case. It's one of the reasons why I actually really feel good about where the Yankees are going to be with Garrett Cole this year. Because if Garrett Cole was coming back to a rotation that didn't have another ace like Max Fried, I think there'd be a lot of pressure on him to come back gangbusters and come back all systems go, when that's not realistic for a guy coming off of, for him, a Tommy John surgery. Same thing, I think, with this Achilles. I think the fact that they have Jayson Tatum and they've played such good team ball, and you have Derek White, Jayson Tatum should be able to slowly transition himself into this unit in a way that should allow the Celtics to still be good and still win games. But I don't think that the Celtics, if you thought they were a title contender before this injury, before his return, then I don't think this changes much of anything. I don't think it makes them much more of a title contender than they were before that. But to me, if you didn't think they were a title contender while he was out, I wouldn't say they're now a title contender when he's there. I think that, again, his minutes will be limited. I think he's going to have to get his timing down. And he's fortunate enough that, and is smart enough, as long as he is good to go, to give himself a long runway before playoff basketball starts. Because when that playoff basketball starts, that speed and that intensity, it's going to be a lot different than the rehab that he went under, than the 2-on-2 he was playing in practice, and the 3-on-3 he was playing, and then even the scrimmages and the 1-on-1 stuff he's doing with the Celtics. It's going to be a lot different when you got real killers playing NBA basketball in the NBA playoffs. And that's going to be a different speed, and I think it's going to be a lot for him to adjust to. So I'm not sitting here banking on Jayson Tatum to be the same all-NBA guy. The question, I guess, for them is, can he be a diminished version and they win a championship? I just don't think that that's the case. And I'll be very curious about how they integrate him and how willing are they to potentially in games where there's a situation where maybe he needs to not finish a game, or maybe he needs to see a certain play at the end of a game to a Jaylen Brown or something like that. Will he be willing to do that? Those, I think, are legitimate questions because of all the things I said yesterday, which is that Jayson Tatum, the last time he was asked to be unselfish and to understand that this was a bigger goal and other guys were going to be asked to step up more than he would, he didn't take it well. And this is a guy who, when he was coming back from his Achilles injury while he was rehabbing, he said, I wasn't coming back to be a role player. So I'm just going off what he has said and how he has acted. He plays with a smile. He's got $1 million smile. He seems to be a really positive overall good guy. So I think some of that kind of taints how people are viewing who Jayson Tatum is. I'm like, yeah, he seems like a nice, fun, good overall good guy, great ambassador for the league, great ambassador for the Boston Celtics. But he also wants to be a star. He wants to be a Hall of Famer. He wants to be one of the greats. He wants to be like his heroes that he imitates all the time. So I'm not just going to sit here and tell you that it's a lock that he's going to be totally fine taking a step back. But there may be chances and opportunities in multiple instances where he's going to have to take a step back. And will he be willing to do that? I mean, he may not have no choice, but will he do it willingly? Or forget about even will he do it willingly? Will he even be able to still contribute to winning in that sense? Because taking a step back doesn't mean you're not on the floor. They may need him to do other things in order to help them win. Maybe it means hitting that big shot as the guy that's waiting for a pass from Jaylen Brown in a spot-up situation. Maybe it means, okay, maybe it's not him getting the shot, but maybe he can get a big stop here or get a big rebound here. There's other things you can do on a basketball court to still be a winning player despite not being the number one option. We just haven't seen Tatum do that in a long time. He did it as a young player when he was coming up with the Boston Celtics, when he was playing with Kyrie Irving and Isaiah Thomas and all those guys. He was able to do it then, but it's been a long time since he's been that guy. And it seems like he has no interest in going back. He's like the Kamala Harris campaign slogan. We are not going back. That seems to have been Jayson Tatum's motto for years now. So I think it's just a reality to have those concerns about whether or not he is going to be willing to do that and will be effective in doing that, even if he is willing. Will he find other ways to help the team win? Or will, again, there be opportunities where Missoula may have to say, okay, I got to go with, Gonzalez to finish this game, or I got to go with Peyton Pritchard to finish this game. That's going to be, those are all real questions that I'm very curious to see answered. But this is a big story in the NBA to have, a former All-NBA player stepping right into one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, and their franchise player making their return. I can't wait for these playoffs, man. I think that these Eastern and Western Conference playoffs are going to be awesome. Maybe you could argue the Eastern Conference first round won't be quite as strong. But I don't know. I think some of those teams, I keep telling you guys, I think Philadelphia, I think is dangerous. I don't know about the teams in the play-in, but I definitely think that whoever gets that 3 seed that has to play against the Sixers in the first round will not be happy with the war that they're going to be under. And I certainly think the Eastern Conference semifinals, whoever comes out, I think it's going to be an awesome drag-out fight to go right before the Eastern Conference finals. And the West, we know how tough the West is. So Jayson Tatum adding to this mix, just another a big story as we get closer and closer to playoff time in the NBA. So Tatum coming back already was big enough news. But then things got interesting when his skills trainer, Drew Hanlen, decided that it was his opportunity to take a shot at Carmelo Anthony. So you're probably wondering, why the hell is Drew Hanlen taking a shot at Carmelo Anthony? Well, let's hear from Carmelo Anthony, who's on his podcast, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. Shout out to him. Shout out Kazim Famuyide. He was on his podcast, and they were having a conversation about Jayson Tatum and this situation with him coming back. And Melo was trying to make the case that the Celtics are probably dreading this conversation they're going to have with Jayson Tatum, potentially, about having to take a smaller role.
Because right now, Jaylen is holding the fort down. You don't want to that up. The excitement of bringing JT back is going to uplift everybody, but how you implement him is very important. I'm sure the front office and Joe Mazzulla is thinking like, holy like how the am I going to do this? How do I have a conversation with JT and say, hey, we're going to bring you off, like, what do you think about coming off the bench while you get your rhythm and find your pace? And what do you think about that? That's a tough conversation, especially with somebody who already put out there and said, I'm coming back to be Jayson Tatum.
I'm glad he mentioned that last part, because that's kind of the part that, like, I didn't even mention that yesterday when I talked about it. I went to Team USA, but we forgot that quote that I mentioned earlier, was that he came back, he said during his rehab, I'm not coming back to be a role player. When he was asked about what do you think about having to take maybe a lesser role when you come back. That was a Jayson Tatum quote. And shout out to 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. They posted that quote when Carmelo Anthony said that, so he wasn't just saying something out of his ass. So I'm glad he said that point. And I think Melo there makes perfectly fine points that are real. That Jaylen Brown's playing at a high level, and the Celtics, like, it's just not going to be easy. It's not easy to have a team that's humming and then drop in a superstar player with a superstar ego who typically demands a lot of shots and a lot of usage, and to think that this is just going to be easy. It's not. It's basketball. People know that that's not. No matter how good the guy is. It takes time. It takes rhythm. It takes chemistry. Like the Miami Heat, when they signed Bosh, Wade, and LeBron, you would think, oh, just drop those guys on a team and it'll just be fine. It wasn't. They started like, 10-9, I think they were the first 19 games. It was ragged. It doesn't matter how good you are. It takes time to get that kind of chemistry. And given the short amount of time Tatum has to get that kind of chemistry, there's a reality potentially that he just may have to take a smaller role in order for the Celtics to compete their goals, which is to them to try to go as far as they can in the playoffs. Those, I don't think, are disrespectful or in any way crazy comments from Carmelo Anthony. He continued by saying that essentially when you have Brown playing at the level that he's playing, it's going to take Jayson Tatum to take a level of maturity to understand that he may have to take a step back because Jaylen Brown has been the one leading the team this whole time.
The MVP candidate. JB sacrificed everything. He was a sacrifice guy. Here, JT, go ahead, you lead. Boom, I'm going to lead in my way. I'm going to help you lead. But now I held the fort down for you. I held the fort down for the whole organization who probably didn't think we would be in this situation.
Right.
JT got to be very mature about this situation. Like, we got a chance to come back and win a championship. You know what I mean? Let me just put my pride and my ego to the side for these next 3 months and continue to let JB
be the man.
Steer the ship.
Yeah.
Because he's proven that he's doing it.
Yeah.
He's doing it at the MVP level.
So, again, I'm trying to find where there's anything crazy Carmelo Anthony said there that was disrespectful to Jayson Tatum. He's talking about doing what's best for the team, doing what he thinks it may take to win, playing second fiddle to an MVP candidate who, by the way, was the finals MVP when these guys were both healthy and playing together. Jayson Tatum already has done this. He's already done this thing. So Melo was saying, I know how much you want to come back and be the superstar, but you're coming off a serious injury. Jaylen Brown is fully healthy and dominating right now. It just is not smart for you potentially to come in and say, I'm ready to take over. That's not how this is going to work, and it shouldn't work that way. It's a fair take. You can disagree with it, agree with it, but it's not something insane. It did not, in any way, in my opinion, require this snide-ass comment from Drew Hanlen, who is Jayson Tatum's trainer. Drew Hanlen, he's a shooting coach and skills trainer who has worked with several NBA talents. He's worked with Bradley Beal. He's worked with Jayson Tatum. He's worked with Joel Embiid. Those are the three guys I think of, and RJ Barrett. Those are 3 to 4 of who I remember to be his big clients. He's worked with big-time NBA players, and Jayson Tatum is certainly one of his guys. They are both from the St. Louis area, and Drew used to work with Bradley Beal, and Bradley Beal is essentially Jayson Tatum's mentor, and that is how they got linked up. And Jayson Tatum definitely does swear by Drew Hanlen and his work. This is what Drew Hanlen, this slick-ass comment he put on social media after those comments. Those are the comments from Carmelo Anthony. The irony of Carmelo Anthony trying to tell Jayson Tatum how to win. Ellipses. Are you serious? Are you actually serious? before I get in Drew Hanlen's ass for a second, let's just continue how this went, just to give you guys the background. So Drew Hanlen says that stupid ass comment. Melo takes it in stride because he's Melo. He doesn't get offended by much. You know, besides that one time he wanted to kill Kevin Garnett, he seems to take everything in stride. He says, Drew, damn Drew, heard you. So Drew Hanlen, now he has a lot of Celtic sycophants because these people, you know, love the ground that Jayson Tatum walks on. So he's gotten several people that have also been now corny and attacking Carmelo Anthony. But he's also getting real pushback from people in the industry, people who love basketball, people who know what he said was some absolute, and I'm gonna curse here, fuck shit. Terrible. He then posts this explanation to say Melo is a Hall of Famer and a gold for a Hall of Famer. Gold medal. I'm trying to play this up big so I can read it because it's too small on my screen. Hold on, give me 1 second as I put this big on my screen so I can read this. There we go. Melo is a Hall of Famer, gold medalist, one of the best bucket getters in the NBA history. In fact, outside of Kobe, he was the player we studied and stole from more than anyone when JT was in high school. My tweet wasn't downplaying how good he was as a player. It was addressing Melo's comments suggesting JT needed to take a backseat in order to win. JT is an NBA champion and 14-6 in playoff series. He knows how to win. Just think the media, especially former players like Carmelo Anthony, who knows JT rocks with him, should be celebrating the fact that JT has worked his ass off to give himself a chance to get back on the court this season instead of dropping hot takes. Really? That was the sound from, that was this stupid ass tweet from Drew Hanlen. Let's give Drew Hanlen the boo birds. Okay, so number one, he did downplay Carmelo Anthony's career. Because for Carmelo Anthony to say that JC doesn't know about winning suggests that you don't think Carmelo Anthony knows about winning, which means you're downplaying his career. So you are disrespecting his career. You are downplaying his career. Don't start backtracking and don't start acting as if, oh no, I didn't do anything wrong. Don't throw stones and then hide your hands, guy. Come on. That you did disrespect his career with that. Number one. Number two, Drew Hanlen, he loves to talk about how he has made the contracts that have been amassed for the guys that he has worked with have amassed over, what, $2 or $3 billion. He loves to talk about that. That's one of the things that in any article that gets written about Drew Hanlen, which I'm sure is just some PR crap that he gives to whatever reporter that's writing it. It's not about the reporter. It's just about whatever PR packet he gives to anybody talking about him. He wants to let everyone know that, you know, with the work I've done, these guys have made $2-3 billion combined in contracts. He loves talking about that all the time. And I'm sure that also would suggest Drew Hanlen is extremely well paid. And for the work that has been done with Joel Embiid and Jayson Tatum and Bradley Beal, seems like that work is paid off. It seems like he is well paid and he deserves that money. But he's getting paid that money to give advice, to train, to give pointers to NBA superstars who have won championships, who have made all-star games, who have made all NBA teams. And here you have Carmelo Anthony, who, yes, is a Hall of Famer, former NBA scoring champion, multiple-time gold medalist, was previously, prior to just Kevin Durant passing him up, was for all these years the highest scoring American in Olympic history. But yes, he didn't win a championship. He has 0 titles. He has only 2 or 1 conference finals appearance. That is true about Carmelo Anthony's career. Do you know how many championships that Drew Hanlen has in terms of being a basketball player? 0. Do you know how many finals appearances Drew Hanlen has as a basketball player? 0. Do you know how many playoff appearances Drew Hanlen has as a player? 0. Do you know how many playoff games Drew Hanlen has played? 0. Do you know how many regular season games he's played? 0. Which means you know how many points he's played in the NBA. He scored in the NBA. 0. 0. So this is why this was such a dumbass comment from Drew Hanlen. Because he is intimating that Carmelo Anthony and what he did in his career, because he doesn't have a championship, cannot speak to Jayson Tatum and what he may have to do to sacrifice with his job as an analyst to talk basketball. I'm gonna let Lita bark for a second because I'm trying to make sure I get this. I want to make sure I get this take off without Lita barking in the back all crazy. But I mean, do you believe this guy? Are you right? Like this is utterly ridiculous. I think Lita's calm now. This guy, we have Carmelo Anthony, who did accomplish all those things. Drew Hanlen has accomplished nothing in the NBA. He doesn't even see how much of a dumbass comment this is, with the irony that he is somebody who literally has his own job as someone who's never played in the NBA because he has value to his clients. Regardless of whether that he doesn't know how to win an NBA game, he doesn't know how to be an NBA player, he doesn't know how to score in the NBA, he doesn't know how to be an NBA star. Drew Hanlen never got further than playing at Belmont University, that in the whatever conference, I mean Atlantic Sun Conference. That's the best he ever did in his career. And I'm not even trying to disrespect that, because you know what? That's a damn far way to go. Belmont's a hell of a great program to play mid-major D1 basketball. You know how hard it is to play at that level? That's a phenomenal feat for him. And the fact that he's parlayed that into this career as a skills trainer is awesome. He's a success story. But what I don't see is people running and throwing to his face, well, who the hell are you to tell me how to shoot? Or who the hell are you telling me how to attack this guy one-on-one? What did you do in the NBA? How many points did you score? Nobody's doing that. You know why? Because we're not immature. We have a level of understanding and critical thinking to understand that just because you didn't accomplish the feats that someone else accomplished doesn't mean someone, A, can't have a damn opinion. Carmelo Anthony can say what the hell he wants. And B, doesn't mean that they don't have value with what they're saying based on experience, based on what they've seen throughout their career, maybe based on what they've learned and how they failed. Because that's another thing that these idiots who are Drew Hanlen and Jayson Tatum sycophants are doing on social media are like, oh, Carmelo Anthony, you never won anything. The irony that Carmelo Anthony doesn't realize what he's saying based on his career. You don't think Carmelo Anthony has thought about his career over and over and over again and thought, maybe that time I was being a little selfish. Maybe that time I should have decided to do X, Y, and Z. You don't think that he's coming from that? Are you guys that stupid? Like, and I hate to do name calling is the one thing I try to avoid, but this pissed me off. Are you guys that stupid? Because anybody with any kind of critical thinking can intimate that Carmelo is telling you this based off of his experience and maybe his own failures in being able to do that. No, did he say, I failed, so therefore you should do this so you don't fail? No, but he doesn't have to say that every damn time he opens his mouth. He gets paid to do this job to commentate on NBA players. And the other thing about this that is BS to me is I'm so sick of these people who keep thinking that it is a job of people in the media to celebrate NBA basketball players. It is not. That's the part of it that was so dumb too. Just think the media, especially former NBA players like Melo, who knows JT Rossman, should be celebrating the fact that JT has worked his ass off. That's not his job. His job is not to celebrate Jayson Tatum. And I'm so sick of these people who are trying to gatekeep and trying to strong arm how NBA players get talked about when we're not even being disrespectful, when nobody's taking personal shots, when nobody's doing anything out of line. And you got who the hell is Drew Hanlen? He's the guy to tell Carmelo Anthony how to commentate on basketball? Are you freaking kidding me? And don't come to me. I've been one of the guys, the people in national media who will raise their hand and say, we need to be more responsible how we talk about NBA players. We do. There's too much, what I see from national TV, from just people with a platform, taking personal shots, saying things that are unnecessary, seeming to pile on guys. Like, I've said that a lot of that stuff is nonsense. A lot of it is not productive, and it's not what fans want. I've said that a million times. So don't look at me like, oh, I'm the guy that's just like, oh, like I don't care about these players' mental health or anything. I talk about it all the time. But this stuff is why older generations say our generation is soft. This crap. Demanding Carmelo Anthony celebrate Jayson Tatum. Man, Carmelo just told him to kiss my ass. That's what I would have told him. Melo's better than me. He's better than a lot of us. 10 points a game average in Drew Hanlen in college basketball. Telling Carmelo Anthony he can't talk about Jayson Tatum. Get the F out of here, bro. Are you kidding me? You know that those old school commercials that kind of, it was the war on drugs was not good for America. But that's the only political comment you'll have from me on that. But you know those old videos in the 80s where it was like, this is your brain normally. It was just a regular egg. And this is your brain on drugs. And they crack the egg and they put it in the frying pan. It's a very famous, war on drugs PSA that they had during the 80s. The PSA worked, but there are a lot of other things about the war on drugs that are bad. Again, I'm not getting more into that. But you know that commercial. This tweet and these losers who have fixed their lips and fixed their fingers to talk about Carmelo Anthony today, to me, I feel like this is me, my brain, that's normal. And this stupid stuff you see from Drew Hanlen, this is your brain on ring culture. This is your brain on ring culture. Because someone as accomplished as Carmelo Anthony, who gets paid to be a commentator about basketball, who in this sense is on his own platform giving his own opinion, you have the nerve to say he has no business giving his opinion about whether or not Jayson Tatum should just simply not be the number one option on the Celtics? That is BS, man. That is BS. That is corny. That is lame. Drew Hanlen, you're a lame, man. That sucked. You should be apologizing to Carmelo Anthony. You should be apologizing. Yes, me, high school bench warmer, talking to college D1 athlete. I don't give a damn. Because we all got an opinion, and we all have a say when it comes to high school and college NBA basketball. You didn't invent the game, man. Talking crazy to Carmelo Anthony. Give me a break. Carmelo Anthony grew up, he was my favorite player growing up when I was a teenager. But anybody who sees me knows how much I've criticized Carmelo Anthony as a Knick. I'm not some Carmelo Anthony crazy stan, but this is ridiculous. This is insane. A skills trainer saying Carmelo Anthony can't talk about basketball. Are you freaking kidding me? Our brains are rotting because of ring culture. The guy's a Hall of Famer. This was ridiculous. This was completely ridiculous. I can't remember last time I got this hot on 40 Days and 40 Nights. Probably Tarek Pagula. I could not believe this. Because, there's a brotherhood when it comes to the NBA. And I guess there's this idea that somehow maybe Melo dissed that brotherhood, which I don't even know how. He's saying Jaylen Brown's amazing. Is he disrespecting Jaylen Brown if he says Jayson Tatum should come back and take all the shots and be the superstar? What is he supposed to do? He's giving his opinion. That was some sucker shit, man. Sucker shit. Drew Hanlen, come on. Jayson Tatum should Carmelo Anthony. What does Carmelo Anthony know about winning? Really? You're upset about him doing hot takes and you're doing Carmelo Anthony hot takes, the most lowbrow crap you could come up with? Have you even heard people saying about Carmelo Anthony can't win a zillion times? You couldn't even come up with anything clever. Just, awful. Awful. If I was Jayson Tatum, I would be getting on the phone and be like, delete that stupid ass tweet and apologize, Carmelo Anthony. What is that? What is that? People, I guess, liking this rant. Shout out to Seti. Seti in the chat. Watch it on IG Live. That's what's up. I feel you. Appreciate you, Seti. My guy, Rod Ray. You tell him, EJ. Rod Ray also. The last time you got that house when you incorrectly said D Rose was MVP was above questioning. I was not incorrect about that. But yes, I was high about that. That one was funny because that one, I wasn't arguing against anybody. Like it wasn't like someone had recently said Derrick Rose shouldn't have won that MVP. Like that's something that stupid people say. But that's not something that it was actually being said. It was just like that was just a random, like we were talking about. Reggie Miller said that Derrick Rose was on the level of LeBron James for like 7 or 8 years. And I was like, what planet is he on? But with that conversation, we started talking about Derrick Rose's career. And I said there was one year where maybe you could argue he was as good as LeBron James. When he won the MVP, and he absolutely should have won. And then I went on a rant about how much I can't stand these people who either weren't alive back then or weren't paying attention, or even if they were, and decided to helicopter in because they read a basketball reference page and said, oh, actually, LeBron James should have won that MVP, without knowing anything about how LeBron James' first year of the Heat went. They only think about the finals and how he choked. There was a lot of other issues during the regular season. I was there. I lived it. I watched all these games. You're a college kid with no job and all you got is the responsibility is to go to class and all you care about is sports. You watch a lot of basketball. So I watched the Heat all year. I watched that entire situation. I'm like, you're insane to think that LeBron James deserved the MVP that year. Are you crazy? He's passing up last shots. Heat were up and down that season. The Bulls routed them every time they played them. Like, what are we talking about? But yes, that was correct. That was the last time I got that hot. I'm gonna calm down though. And I haven't let the chopper ring on somebody like that, but I'm sorry. That was pathetic. Legitimately pathetic. Because again, Hanlen, like I mentioned that brotherhood. Like Hanlen works with NBA guys. He works with NBA players. And he knows about these guys and their post careers and what they're trying to do with their post careers. Carmelo Anthony is doing his best to, work this career in the media. He is doing what he is being paid to do, and he's doing it in a way that, again, was not calling Rudy Gobert a bum. This was not, Charles Barkley just ripping it. That's not what this was. This was the most innocuous comment, simply saying that he thinks that Jayson Tatum is going to take some maturity for him to understand that he may have to take a step back because his running mate is playing like an MVP. And it's something that they told Melo multiple times in his career. The biggest one was, of course, when he was coming back from injury and Jeremy Lin was here and Lin Sanity was running wild in New York City. And Melo had the same, we were selling Melo the same stuff. And what happened? Melo was like, oh no, he was hemming and hawing too. And it screwed everything up. He came back and Lin Sanity was dead. Like, he again, you don't think he's speaking from experience? You don't think he understands this dynamic? He also obviously was traded to a Knicks team that had Amari Stoudemire playing at an MVP level. And you didn't hear the back and forth about those guys, about whose team it was when they first got here. You don't think he's saying this from experience? Are you that stupid? Are you that stupid? These people, I'm tired of the people who every time someone wants to make a commentary on somebody, they want to pull up somebody's basketball reference or football reference card like doesn't mean they can't say anything. You can have an opinion. You don't like the opinion? Say why you don't like the opinion. But to say Carmelo Anthony doesn't understand winning and Jayson Tatum does, that's ring culture rotting your brain. Ring culture rotting your brain. How many gold medals did Carmelo Anthony win? He won a college championship. I think he knows how to win a basketball game. I think he knows about coming back from injury as a professional athlete. Something Drew Hanlen knows nothing about. Because the guy he trains, Joel Embiid, breaks down every 2 seconds. So the last thing I want to hear about is how to come back and be effective after injury when your client keeps getting hurt nonstop and he can't stay on the court. Maybe Joel Embiid needs to find somebody else who can keep him healthy. Because I know Joel Embiid has worked like hell to keep himself healthy. And he's working your ass for all these years, and he's got nothing for it. The nerve of these guys. You're a skills trainer. I just feel like there are people in this like sports complex. It's not even just sports. It's just media. It's just not even media. It's just everything. It's just everywhere. There's just people who like have this outsized self-importance that pisses me off, man. Like I can go on. I'm gonna hold it there. But I'm tired of it. And you know what I'm talking about. People that listen to me. You know what you've seen in our world, in our sports media, in everywhere. These people who go into business for themselves, who think that they're the best things in sliced bread, who think that they're the stars of everything. Someone have some humility. Someone understand you're not all the best things in sliced bread. Someone understand that your ish stinks like everybody else. And we all have flaws. And we all didn't accomplish everything. And we all can get better. And we all can learn from each other. And not let's just snipe and snipe and snipe and snipe and snipe for no reason. All right, I'm done with the rant. Shout out to Carmelo Anthony. Shout out to Jayson Tatum. I don't hope he does well against the Knicks. I'm be very clear about that. I damn sure don't want him to get hurt. That was awful. There's no Knicks fans that wanted that to happen. I'm really hoping he comes back healthy. I hope he does not play well. I'm being real. I do hope he does not play well. Or if he plays well, he can play great. Don't play well against the Knicks. That's fine too. Don't play well against the Knicks. You want to play well if you're the old Jayson Tatum, that's totally fine. I'm wishing you nothing but the best when it comes to that. If we see you in the playoffs, we see you at any point at the end of this season, I don't want to have anything to do with Jayson Tatum playing like a superstar again. I always tell people the last time, I said it yesterday, the last time I saw that guy playing, he was scary. I mean, the shots this guy was making in that game 4 against the Knicks, they were about to lose that game. But that was one of the best performances I've seen from a Knicks opponent in a long time. I don't know how many years, but like considering the stakes and the like difficult array of shot making, it was insane what he was doing. So I got nothing but respect for Jayson Tatum. So shout out to him. Shout out to Carmelo Anthony. And I hope everything goes okay with JT. I think these are fair points Carmelo Anthony made. The last thing he deserved was that idiotic pot shot from a skills trainer. Give me a break. All right, let's keep the ball moving. I want to talk about these comments from Steve Kerr, which I found very interesting. So Steve Kerr was on, forgive me, I think it's 98.5 or 97.5, but it's the local radio station in the Bay Area. And one of the things that Steve Kerr has been criticized about as we see the Warriors once again kind of mired in a around 500 season where they have struggled to consistently play at a high level. They obviously lost Jimmy Butler, who already was at an advanced age, to a torn ACL. Steph Curry's had this knee injury where we're kind of unclear on when he's going to come back. I don't think it's a matter of if. I think it is a matter of when, but still it seems kind of very murky what's going on with Steph Curry and his knee. So there's been a lot of criticism because of the Warriors and where they are. The dynasty is over. The run of championship contention it seems over unless so there's some Giannis trade that comes out of the works over the summer. It seems like the jig is up. And there are people who are now looking at where they stand and wondering if it had to go down this way. This is a team that's had multiple opportunities at multiple lottery picks. James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, who's on the team currently. They have Podziemski, who's on the team currently. They've had a bunch of chances at bringing in young players to help the team. Of course, they had Jordan Poole, who was instrumental in their championship they won against the Boston Celtics, that haven't worked out or haven't allowed them to remain in championship contention because they didn't progress into being superstars. So Steve Kerr was asked this question on the radio, and he responded saying essentially it's hard to win with teenagers.
The frustration of our fans probably stems from the fact that, we've got we had the 3 lottery picks coming at a time when we were winning a championship, and it's just hard to play 19-year-olds on championship teams. And so, the development that comes is going to be different than it would come on a team that's in the lottery, where you just put a guy out there for 35 minutes and let him make his mistakes. And I think that's probably where some of the frustration comes.
So that's Steve Kerr saying essentially young players playing on championship teams and winning teams is hard to get them the reps they need and allow them to make the mistakes they need to make in order to continue to grow because the pressure is to win. He also said this. He wanted to defend himself a little bit, saying that essentially we did develop some good players here.
But you see how it can work too. You see Moses Moody. You see his development over time. You see Guy Santos. I think Brandon is really coming into his own, playing well. But it takes time.
So then he continued saying essentially that Phil Jackson taught him something that was important when it comes to young players, and he believes it to be true.
I remember when I got to Chicago, we had a couple of drafts, and I was in my 10th year, 9th year, and I asked Phil Jackson, what he thought of the guys we drafted. He said, well, it won't matter for a few years. And I said, how come? He said, well, because grown-ups win championships. And it's true. It's true.
So he said, grown-ups win championships. That's a quote from Phil Jackson, and he says it's true. And then he finished with this, saying that it's hard for young guys to quickly develop and to become a championship caliber players.
It's really hard to come in as a young player and be expected to have the knowledge, have the wealth of knowledge and skill and feel that you have to be a championship NBA player.
So I feel like this is a lot of skirting accountability from Steve Kerr. Because to me, I just watched an Oklahoma City Thunder team that was playing 22-year-old Chet Holmgren, 23-year-old Jalen Green, 21-year-old Cason Wallace. Isaiah Zoe was like 25. A bunch of young guys. The only guy who was 30 years old in that team that was playing was Alex Caruso. Even Lou Dort is like 26. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander 26. Like, these guys were young guys playing in NBA championship games. But forget about the stars. You want to say, okay, or forget about Shai, because, okay, he's a little older, but he's 26. Like, okay, Chet Holmgren is 22 years old. Jalen Williams, 23 years old. These are extremely young players. And they're playing knockout, drag-out ball against the vets of the sport. And many, Jamal Murray and Jokic, guys that have won championships. Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, guys that have been in the NBA for a long time. And then you're playing against the Pacers, where they had some young guys too, and that's another team that showed that they could develop talent. But they're playing the T.J. McConnells and the Pascal Siakam champion, so they're playing grown men, and they won. And they won a championship, and they developed those guys just fine. Speaking of Jayson Tatum, this is like the Celtic Jayson Tatum show today. I watched Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown develop on Celtics teams that were competing for Eastern Conference championships every year. They were young guys who were not the number one and number two options yet, and they were playing behind Isaiah Thomas's and Kyrie Irving's and other stars, Gordon Hayward's and other stars that were there until it was their turn to rise up and be the stars, and then they developed into that, and they became stars. And did they fail? Did they have issues? Yeah, of course, but eventually they went to a finals. Okay, they lost, they failed again, but then a couple years later, they ended up winning a championship. So I think it skirts accountability to be like, you just can't win with young players. You just can't. There's no way young players can assimilate into a winning culture. It's just not true. It's not true. It's very dismissive. And again, I think it's a very convenient way to skirt accountability for Steve Kerr for what has been a failure to develop young talent with the Warriors. And it's not just develop. It's also identify. Because some of these guys you just couldn't develop into winning players. And that's a reality too. It just may never worked out for James Wiseman. It just may have never worked out for some of these guys that they've drafted really high, but they may have drafted the wrong guy. It may have never worked out for Jonathan Kuminga. But it may have worked if they drafted LaMelo Ball. It may have worked if they would have drafted Franz Wagner. Like, there's misses also in the draft evaluation for the Warriors that definitely you wonder when you talk about why it was so hard to develop these guys. You may have gotten some lemons. Like, that's a reality too. You may have drafted some lemons, and that's also comes down to you being able to evaluate talent. That's also an indictment on Steve Kerr and Bob Myers and that entire front office. They've won a lot of championships, so like some of this is kind of crying over spilled milk. Like, I understand if you're a Warriors fan why you're into it, and you should hold them accountable. Like, they screwed this up. There's no question. There's no debate to me. They definitely screwed this up, and it's a failure. And he could spin it as, well, grown ups win titles and probably held too long to Klay Thompson, and you made it. You made the trade for Jimmy Butler, and that meant that Jonathan Kuminga couldn't develop anymore. Like, those teams were willing to live again with the mistakes of Tatum and Brown and Holmgren and Jalen Williams. Like, those guys were like second-year players and rookies playing on the Thunder when they were number one seed in the West. Last year wasn't the first year the Thunder were awesome. They were awesome the year before. I think you can go, it's not every team in NBA history, but there are plenty of recent NBA champions where there are young guys who are stepping up and are playing great high-level basketball, and it's because they've been developed extremely well and they've been coached really well. Steve Kerr is a great NBA head coach. He has won multiple championships. Obviously, what is he, 4 championships at this point? He won without Kevin Durant after Kevin Durant left again to get the 4th one. I think X's and O's wise, he runs a beautiful offense. He's a great coach. I'm not one of these people that act like Steve Kerr rolls the ball out and they just play. That's ridiculous. I watched him play with Mark Jackson, and then I watched him play with Steve Kerr. It's a much different team. He's a great coach. But this is a shortcoming. Not every coach has 99 sliders everywhere. There's some aspects where you fail. There's some aspects where you're not as good. This is the aspect of Steve Kerr. And I think I understand being sensitive about it, because despite someone having the resume he has, this is the one thing people are always going to harp him on. So he's going to defend himself about it. But this is the one thing he's not good at. It's the one thing he fell short with. I don't think that's an unfair thing to say. So I thought these comments were kind of him kind of backtracking and kind of defending something that he can't defend. You can't defend their record developing young talent. You can't defend their draft record. It was horrendous. And the reason why the Warriors about to enter some really dark years is because they're going to come out of this Draymond era and this Steph Curry era. And, Podziemski looks pretty good. I don't know if that's a future. He doesn't look like a future all-star to me. Moody's pretty good. I don't know if he's an NBA starter. If he is an NBA starter, he's more of like your 5th or 4th starter in the starting lineup. He mentioned Gui Santos is a guy that kind of pulled up out of nowhere. He's played okay for them. But, again, do you see future stars here? Do you see guys that can take the mantle from when Steph and Draymond have to eventually retire? No, we don't see that. And it's a shortcoming. It doesn't mean that he's a terrible coach. It doesn't mean that he's not going to the Hall of Fame or anything like that. But we got to be real. We got to keep it 100. I always say, EJ keeps it 100 every time I step in front of the mic. I defend Steve Kerr all the time in terms of his resume as being one of the greatest NBA coaches of all time. This part of it sucks. It's the one thing he couldn't do well. There's some things that people couldn't do well. Like, it's okay. It happens. But, yeah, these comments I didn't really rock with, because I just like, how are you defending the fact that you didn't develop talent? You didn't develop talent. To me, it's very clear. Either that or you didn't identify it, which, again, is still an indictment on you and the coaching staff and the front office. Let's go to the NFL here. Big NFL trade. So you got DJ Moore, wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. He gets traded along with a 5th-round pick for the 2026 draft to the Buffalo Bills for a 2nd-round pick. So this is a pretty significant trade. DJ Moore, he was the 2nd leading receiver for the Bears last year. His production fell off a cliff, to be clear. He was someone that they just given $100+ million to the offseason before. And then after a really solid season after that, his 2nd year with Caleb Williams did not go very well at all. He seemed to be kind of de-emphasized in the offense as Colston Loveland became a bigger fixture of the offense. Luther Burden became a fixture of the offense. Those are 2 rookies that came in and showed a lot of juice. And, of course, Rome Odunze is a guy who was drafted the year before, who they've been trying to kind of weave in there. So it seemed like he was being de-emphasized in the offense. He had what looked like people crushed him for that interception in overtime. He didn't run a good route. He didn't seem to know what he was doing. I also thought it was a bad decision by Caleb Williams. I thought he probably got too much blame for that. But DJ Moore definitely took a lot of blame for the late game interception that essentially cost the Bears their season. So I saw this and thought that this was going to be his end. He was not going to be back with the Bears. So I'm not totally shocked by that. Bears fans seem to be done with him. He only had about a little less than 700 yards last year receiving, which is like so low for him. This is a guy who was almost an easy 1,000-yard receiver kind of guy, and he was nowhere near that. So the Bears move on. So the Bills get what I think is their new number 1 receiver. His numbers won't suggest he was at last year, but I think the hope is that the Bills are saying they're getting the DJ Moore from 2 years ago that was in the Luke Getsy offense, not the the guy who, or Shane Waldron. What was it? It was either Waldron or Getsy, one of them guys. I know all these OCs were running back and forth. But that offense that Ibuvuce was running the last year he was there, they hoping they get in that DJ Moore, who was still a 1,000-yard receiver, who was still very productive, who had just been given $112 million. They're hoping they get in that guy, not the guy that was de-emphasized in the offense and didn't really seem to be quite as engaged with this team. Just didn't seem to be the greatest fit for whatever Ben Johnson was trying to do. I was a little surprised because I would have thought that DJ Moore would have fit right into like the Amon-Ra St. Brown role, but I guess they're kind of different receivers. Amon St. Brown is much more of like a catch the ball over the middle, physical kind of guy, and I guess that's not really part of DJ's game. So he gets traded to the Bills. I think this is I'm kind of torn on this trade. I liked it more when I heard that it was for a mid-round pick, which was first reported. I thought it made third or fourth. I said, okay, DJ Moore's, I think he's still good. I think he still has some stuff left in the tank. And the Bills desperately need an upgrade over receiver. And the fact that they had, Brandon Cooks dropping passes in playoff games, like they can't do that again. So I'd much rather take my chances with someone who's a former Pro Bowler multiple times over than the receiver they had running last year. So I like the trade from that standpoint in terms of the acquisition. I thought a second-round pick, I thought that was a little rich in terms of like what the Bears got. I know essentially they gave up a fifth round, so this was basically DJ Moore was the price of moving up from a fifth round to a second-round pick. If I'm the Bears, I'm doing that 100 times over. I'm like, yep, you have them. Totally fine. Get rid of that money. I get a second-round pick in this really solid receiver draft where, like, I know we're talking a lot about some of the first-round guys, and there's not quite many. There are a lot of second-round guys. I would be like, oh, yeah, definitely. I would give me that pick for sure. So I'm actually really interested in what the Bears do with that pick. Do they get another receiver? Like, do they think they need a third guy with the combination of Rome, Burden, and Colston Loveland at tight end? That might be enough. Like, they may feel like it's time for the young guys to step up and step into this role, and like we're gonna give them the keys, and they're the stars now, and we'll get a kind of a veteran guy on a cheap to be the third receiver. But that's gonna be the core of our receiving core moving forward, and maybe Ben Johnson will feel good about feeling like these are young guys I can mold into who I want them to be, as opposed to maybe someone like a DJ Moore who's kind of a fixed guy in terms of who he is at this point in his career. He's not gonna be able to be amendable or change his style. That could be possible. They also could be aggressive and say, hey, let's get one of these other receivers in this draft. Again, I love Omar Cooper. He killed the Canes, but I love Omar Cooper from Indiana. Maybe you get a guy like that in there, and now you add him to that trio of receivers, and then Colston Loveland. That's very possible. You also could get some more depth at the pass rusher defensive line position. You also could trade up in the draft using that second-round pick with your other second-round pick and maybe your first. There's a lot of versatility that's been opened up for the Bears, and salary cap room opened up for the Bears by doing this. So I think this is a great move for the Bears. And for the Bills, I think it's a little bit of a flyer. But what this told me was that we saw Brandon Beane during the season. He made those comments that were kind of controversial, but he was like, you got these young GMs who think we're playing Madden, who are asking for ridiculous things for wide receivers. And some people thought he was talking to Darren Muji, but who knows who he was talking to. But he was taking the shots at some GMs that he thought were being completely ridiculous for the price for what receivers were going for during the regular season. What this tells me is he probably called Howie Roseman and asked for A.J. Brown, and Howie Roseman hold him first and second round pick. And just like I said, with Carmelo Anthony, Drew Hanlen, he probably said, kiss my ass, I'll just take DJ Moore. I think that's what happened here. I think this is probably the plan B of whatever they were going for. But if I'm Moore, he should be. A lot of players aren't excited to play in Buffalo because of cold weather and small market, but he should be excited to play with Josh Allen and play in that offense. I think that he obviously has experience playing with Joe Brady. Joe Brady obviously was the offensive coordinator when he was in Carolina, and he was having some of his best years over there. Joe Brady is familiar with what he does well. He's familiar with what made DJ Moore a star in this league. So if he's going to have a resurgence, playing with Josh Allen and Joe Brady calling plays, this is the spot for him. So I think this is one of those who won the trade. I kind of like it for the Bears a little more because the Bills didn't really solve like getting the undisputed number one guy that they probably need. They got another guy who probably fits into the everybody eats offense that they've been going with the last few years. But Moore is a lot closer to that number one guy than anybody else they've had in the last 2 years. So for that reason, like I would say that's not a bad move for the Bills. You got to hope that DJ Moore is not washed. I don't think he is, but we're gonna learn very soon. Obviously, 'cause I think they're gonna. I think this is their big move. I don't think there's another huge receiver coming. I think this is the guy. They're secure in the slot, and I think they're gonna. I think this whole reclamation project of Keon Coleman is not like a joke. I think that this is something that Joe Brady is really gonna try to make happen, and Coleman will be on the other side, and then of course you got Knox and you got Kincaid, and those will be the guys at tight end, and they're gonna try to run it back with those guys and see what happens. Definitely upgrade the receiver room. There's no question. More is better than, in my opinion, everybody they had. I know Shakir is a good little guy in the slot. Like, he's good. He's on my fantasy team, so I'm not gonna dish it Khalil Shakir, but I don't think he's the number one. And I don't think he can moonlight as number one. Moore can moonlight as number one, even if he's one on the lower end of number one receivers in the NFL. Rob the Ray in the chat. And A.J. Brown's were the first and the second round. Shaking my head. Good luck, Howie. Yeah. Again, I think that this was the Bills being like, no shot in hell. I would go call Chicago, take a disgruntled receiver who didn't perform as well, but maybe he could play well in my offense. I'll take him over what that price is. I also saw this and thought, A.J. Brown, you're a New England Patriot. It's a little early, though. We'll see. There's plenty of time. But I did think that. I did wonder if that Patriots counter with then getting A.J. Brown now that the Bills made the first move with how they improved their receiver core. Still a lot of time left in this, but man, I was surprised the Bears were able to get a second. I thought that was shrewd movements there by Ryan Poles, because adding the fifth, allowing him to go up to the second round, I think that was a good move. Because I think if you probably trade DJ Moore, you probably only get a third or a fourth, and maybe that was the original trade. Because remember, these reports are coming out as they're negotiating or as they're wrapping it up. It could have been possible that they kind of went back and said, hey, what about this flip of the trade? We give you a fifth, we get it to the second round, and you get more. And maybe the Bills were okay with that. It's a lot. It's a lot. Again, you could argue, just like I argued with Trent McDuffie, what are the chances that your second round receiver is as good as DJ Moore? I'll be honest, it's probably a lot higher than the Trent McDuffie trade. It's not impossible. I said it was like 5% or 8% for Trent McDuffie. Second round receiver in his rookie year compared to DJ Moore in that offense, I mean, there's a lot of variables. I don't know, maybe it's 30%. Like, it's not impossible. So it's a little bit of a risk. But Moore knows the offense, and he's playing with Josh Allen, which I think, in theory, could be really good for him in his career. Staying in the NFL, I was not shocked to see this, but it's just, you thought you were going to get one of those guys that was going to finish his career in one place, and we didn't get to him. So shout out to Cam Jordan. He's not going to finish his career with the Saints. Saints have elected to not give him a new contract. They have until next Wednesday, when the league year starts, to come up to an agreement. They're not going to come to one. So he will be a free agent. If they don't come to agreement, his contract gets voided. That's how the language works. I don't know how that happens or why that happens, but don't try to get me to explain NFL contracts. But his contract gets voided because he's not getting a new contract. So that means he's going to become a free agent. I think this is a sleeper. This could be a sleeper, like, championship move for some of these contenders getting Cam Jordan. I kind of was surprised because I'm going to keep it 100% a buck with you. I did not watch any Saints football. I didn't even watch them when they played the Jets. So I'm not considering telling you I was crushing Cam Jordan tape. But I was surprised to see that he had 10.5 sacks this past season, still at 36 years old. And even the PFF grade, I know PFF's not everything, and I know it's not everything, big caveat. But still, the PFF grade was really good. Like, he was a top 30 defensive end in the NFL last year. Ironically, despite the 10.5 sacks, it was actually his run grade that was much better than his pass grade. Cam Jordan's always been very good against the run. Now, I don't think that means you don't go after Max Crosby or go after some of these other pass rushers that could be available potentially. But I do think he could be a good consolation prize for somebody. I think if you're looking at these teams that need a pass rush, like the Bears, for example, they just made a trade. In theory, they can make the move they've made could be an effort to help them get Max Crosby. I keep saying that Max Crosby, I think, would be an awesome fit in Chicago and Washington are teams that are circling for Max Crosby. If one of those teams, or Philly or Dallas, or one of those teams like that, if they lose out on the Max Crosby sweepstakes and some of these other edge rushers sweepstakes, Cam Jordan is going to be a guy that you could probably get at a pretty decent number on a short-term deal. And I think he could be a good fit still. I think he can still play. He's been an awesome locker room leader kind of guy. He's going to come in and be a pro. He's going to come in and know what it's about, and he's probably hungry. He's a guy that's trying to win a championship. He does not have a title, despite all the accolades. He's a walk-in Hall of Famer. I know he's old, and he could be terrible next year, but he strikes me as the kind of guy that he's going to be kind of good until he retires. Like, I think he's one of those guys that keeps himself in phenomenal shape. He does all the right things, and I think he would be a good addition to anybody's locker room. Again, this is a guy who had 10.5 sacks last year, a really strong bounce-back season after the previous year. We looked like he was kind of washed, and he had to take a massive pay cut. He had said that they're probably going to ask me to take another pay cut. There's no way that's happening after I had 10.5 sacks. And he shouldn't. He was right to say, no, I'm not going to do that. So that's going to be, a little bit of a sneaky big move for somebody. I think whoever gets Cam Jordan, if he goes to a contender. Who knows where he'll go, but getting a guy who had 10.5 sacks and has made, it's crazy to think how great his career is. 8 Pro Bowls, and he made them when they were like kind of still a Pro Bowl game, real a Pro Bowl. Like, he's, again, a walk-in Hall of Famer. So look out for the Cam Jordan move. I'm actually curious to see if he ends up being a kind of a difference maker, or maybe, I'm not telling you he's going to have 10 sacks even next season, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a game we're watching in January and Cam Jordan comes up with a huge sack or a huge play somewhere, and you're like, whoa, remember that guy? Like, oh, right, they got Cam Jordan. Oh, he kind of was like sleepwalking through the air, but he knows still how to pass rush, or he knows how to make a big play when they need to, and he's trying to win a championship. He could be a good finishing piece, I think, potentially, on one of these teams that's contending. We have one more segment here before we get out of here. It's been a fun one so far. We got a 3-hour show earlier, so this one might not go even to 2 hours, but the last early one was like 2 hours and 50 minutes, something crazy. Supersized day 39, which is appropriate because we're in the penultimate day and night of 40 days and 40 nights. Streaming live multiple spots, including on YouTube, New Generation Media. Again, thank you for those in the chat, those watching on YouTube. If you're liking this content, if you're liking this show, make sure you subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. I could do the whole spiel about, we do 2 live shows per day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. I could do all that, but I mean, the show ends tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last day of the 2 shows we'll do. But still, if you want to watch our library of content on this show, other shows, and the new stuff coming up, because we'll have new stuff coming up once 40 Days and 40 Nights ends, be sure to subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. Also streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart. Make sure you follow me there on X. Shout out to the people watching me on X. Greatly appreciate y'all as always. And of course, streaming live on Instagram currently. Action EJ will find me on Instagram. Thank you to the people that have checked me out on Instagram. I saw multiple people in here. See, we got my guy Nick Theodoro on the Instagram. Shout out to Nick Theodoro. Big Jim Stutz is in the Instagram as well. Shout out to him. Paulie is in the Instagram as well. So shout out to the folks on Instagram live for rocking with me again. I greatly appreciate y'all. And I'll be back tomorrow, of course, with more 40 Days and 40 Nights, 8 a.m. I mentioned yesterday. I'll mention one more time because you got to play it up. Obviously, tomorrow night is the last 40 Days, 40 Nights show. We have, of course, the 40 days in terms of the day show. So we have a morning show, and but that won't be the last show. But then we'll have a night show later. In the night show, time, I don't know if we have a time yet, but the time, obviously, the show starts at 6. I'm not sure when the time my guest's going to be here. But big guests to wrap up 40 Days and 40 Nights. On the night show, we will have my good friends, Maggie Gray and Andrew Perloff. The duo of Maggie Gray and Andrew Perloff will be reunited on 40 Days and 40 Nights, which is really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to that. Again, of course, I worked on that show for the last 2 years. We tried to put them along with our former colleagues, Andrew Bogish and Manny Rodriguez, on the show all at the same time. And I think there was literally smoke coming from my computer, my hard drive. My computer said, no, Moss, we're not doing that. So it was a jumbled, chaotic mess. I'm going to say that bluntly. Apologies to those who have tried to watch that show or have watched that show. I feel embarrassed because I see like the viewer count. That's one of the highest viewed shows that I've had, and people have probably gone back to watch it because they've seen the Maggie and Perloff were on, and they're like, what the hell is this? So, I was like, oh man, I felt bad. I kind of was like, oh, I should just, that sucked. I really feel like I let my viewers down. And Andre was like, tell them to come on again. Give them a mulligan. Just do it again. Just do it with them this time. Like, because if you couldn't do all 4, maybe just have 2 of them. And I was like, and I felt embarrassed. I'm like, oh, now I got to go back, tail tucked between my legs. Oh, hey guys, I know I had you come on my show and it was kind of a mess, but will you come on again? But they're awesome. They're my friends. So it's not just my mentors and the people I worked with and for. So I still though, you still feel embarrassed. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. But I was like, it would be really fitting if I can get them on again one more time, just them together. I didn't know if it was gonna be the last show. That wasn't necessarily the plan, but it's just in terms of their scheduling, that's how the plan worked. And Zach Gelb had kind of had me in a panic where he was like, what do you got for your last show? And I was like, I don't know. Now my audience knows that I don't know. So I was like, all right, well, now I got to find something good. And we kind of just stumbled into having Maggie and Perloff come on live for the last show. And of course, it's Kendall Fridays. So Kendall Stewart will come on as well. So that'll be fun. So Friday's going to be a nice show. It's going to be the last show. Make sure you keep it locked in, man. That's going to be a lot of fun. Maggie and Perloff live on 40 Days and 40 Nights tomorrow night. Be there or be square. Again, the show starts at 6 p.m. Are you in? Man, I hope you guys are in. I'm really excited about the World Baseball Classic. World Baseball Classic is underway. Korea's already got a W. Team USA plays tomorrow versus Brazil. And I'm one of those folks who are all in on the WBC. Get out of here with it's an exhibition. Get out of here with I want to just do regular season baseball. Why do we care about the WBC? Get out of here with all those lame-ass, tired-ass takes. I don't want to hear it. This is cool. Baseball has become such an international sport. And what's awesome about the WBC is how much the international players are like caring about this in a major way. Because again, I'm not trying to get copyright struck or anything like that or steal any kind of video. I wish I could play you guys the scene from Dominican Republic during these exhibition games that they were playing to get ready for the World Baseball Classic. I mean, these scenes of Juan Soto's home runs and the atmosphere in the crowd, they look like World Series games. I mean, it's just electric. And I get it. I understand why it would be electric. Imagine, like, you're talking about, like, you're playing for you got your Dominican Republic, you got Juan Soto, highest paid player in the game, one of the best players in the game, wearing your colors, representing your country, hitting home runs in your home stadiums. How many times are you gonna see Juan Soto get to play in the Dominican Republic at this stage of his career? Like, these are special moments, and they're just getting started. This tournament, those are just exhibitions. The tournament's just gotten underway. We'll have Team USA games, and we got good participation. Not everybody's playing. There's some guys that aren't in there and stuff. That's to be expected. Some guys are trying to get paid. Some guys are coming back from injury. But for the U.S., man, you got Aaron Judge, you got Bryce Harper. We mentioned Paul Skeens. I don't like what Tara Scooble's doing. We did a whole story on that about how he's going to do one game and then go back to Detroit or go back to wherever they're playing in Florida to go back to training camp. But otherwise, man, I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. WBC, I think, is quickly becoming one of the better new events we have in sports right now. Like the Four Nations, I think, showed us that there is a space for exhibition, international competition, and for us to really like it. And I really hope that people start to come around to the WBC. Because I don't understand why when the WBC, when we're talking about with hockey and the Four Nations, I think there was like 100% approval rating. I didn't hear anybody make any complaints about the fact that it was a exhibition or that it didn't matter or they only cared about the regular season. I didn't hear anything about that. I just heard this was crazy entertaining. This was awesome. I don't know why WBC gets all this crap from people who are like, oh, I just want to hear the regular season. I don't care about WBC. I'm like, wait, that's an exhibition with international competition with international people who care, just like the Four Nations. The Four Nations worked just like the WBC has been working. I think there are things I can tweak. Like I said, in my opinion, I think it should be during the season. I think it should be every 3 years we don't have an All-Star game, which will suck because the All-Star game is good. I almost wonder maybe if you push the All-Star game up a little bit, maybe also make the All-Star break a shorter break. I don't know. There's things you can do, but I've proposed putting it in the actual Major League Baseball season. You play for all the time and then you stop, just like we do with hockey with the Olympics, because we don't have Olympic, baseball in terms of pros playing. We should, but we don't. because they're playing in their Major League Baseball seasons. Instead, have it be the WBC. Okay, you're not going to have them play in the Olympics. Have this tournament be in July around the All-Star break. Extend the All-Star break for 2 weeks as opposed to the 5 days it is. 2 weeks is not going to kill you. Maybe start the season a tad bit earlier in the season. A tad bit earlier in the year. And then call it a day. I think this would be awesome. And we want to talk about really revving people up. And now guys are warmed up. They've pitched and everything. I think that would be better maybe than having guys revving up for a season. It's a little awkward. I'm not going to lie. It is a little awkward in terms of the timing. It's a tough thing to place. It's a tough thing to figure out when do you do this to make it make sense. But I think that this is awesome. And by the way, the people who keep saying, oh, they still have to play in the Olympics, that's never going to happen because Major League Baseball has this. Major League Baseball wants to make sure that this is a big thing, that this sells merch, that this sells tickets. So anyone thinking that, oh, because this has been such a success and people have been so excited about it, that will mean that they'll then maybe decide to have an extended Olympic break to allow Olympians, from the Major League Baseball to participate. That's not going to happen because baseball, they're not stupid. They're trying to make this money. But I'm excited, man. I can't wait for the WBC. I saw the U.S. is favored. We never win this thing. I don't really think we're going to win again. I don't know why we don't win. We always still have the most talent, even though it's not everybody pitching and playing. Though this team is kind of stacked. This one is closer to being like a normal U.S. team. Maybe a starter or two. Again, Tag Scoop's only given one start. Besides that, though, their horses are here. Aaron Judge is here. Bryce Harper is here. A lot of the big names in terms of the Americans are here. So there's a reason why they're the favorites. But, man, the Japanese are so good. They've been such a good team. And they won, obviously, last time. I think they won the last 2 times. And they still have those two, and I say this with all respect, those two animals in terms of competitors in Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto. I'm going to have to see somebody beat those guys before I say anybody else is winning. I hope the U.S. wins, but that just hasn't been how this has gone during this stretch. But I'm excited for the WBC. I hope you guys are. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of the action. Looking forward to seeing the DR. Looking forward to seeing Venezuela. I know a lot's going on in the country, but they still got a really good team, and they're really hoping to make a big move here. Shout out to the Mexican team. I know my guy Manny Rodriguez has been locked into Mexico. Did not know they had both Rowdy Tellez and Alejandro Kirk. I mean, you want to talk about having some beef. That Mexican squad, they could probably also put a football team together, and you got your 2 4-3 defensive tackles. Those 2 guys, I mean, my gosh, bringing a lot of beef with those 2 guys in your lineup. But I can't wait to watch these games, man. U.S. play tomorrow. The only thing I think maybe the only thing I tweet too is I think some of the pool play, there's probably too much teams. If there was, forget about, okay, let's say you can't, like, we're not going to allow you to change the timing of it. Because that'd be my biggest thing is, I put it during the middle of the season. It's okay, you can't do that. What would be the other thing you would change? It probably would be the fact that I think there are too many teams. With all due respect to some of these other, places where they want to try to represent the entire world, I do think we have to be real about where baseball is played. Like, in basketball, you could legitimately have competitive teams on every continent. So therefore, it makes sense to have a World Cup where you have teams in South America, teams in North America, teams in Europe, teams in Asia, teams in Africa. The game is truly global. Baseball is kind of Western Hemisphere. It's global in terms of Northern, Southern Hemisphere. Yeah, we got players all over the place. But for as like the whole world, it's kind of Western Hemisphere. So I think we have too many teams here. Because we got a lot of guys playing for teams where it's like, are you really from this country? And I'm not trying to be, like these people are like, oh, Carvey Town shouldn't play for the Dominican Republic. I'm not trying to do that. But there are some major stretches we are doing with who's allowed to play for some of these teams. And I'm just being honest. We're playing Brazil on Friday. Brazil is not a baseball hotbed to me. Italy is not a baseball hotbed to me. I remember one year Mike Piazza, I think, was like the manager of Brazil, which is like, well, okay, sure. Italy, I'm sorry, not Brazil, Italy. Italy is not a hotbed for baseball. Australia. A lot of the guys in the shout out to the Bahamas. If it wasn't for the Bahamas, there wouldn't be a lot of guys playing on Great Britain. A lot of the guys from Great Britain are from the U.S. Israel is not a hotbed for baseball. the Netherlands. Well, no, I can't say the Netherlands because they got Curacao, so they are a hotbed. But again, a lot of these teams it's like we could get rid of half these teams. We can get rid of half these teams. We don't need a lot of these teams. We don't need Colombia. We don't need Israel. We don't need Italy. We don't need Brazil. We don't need Australia. We probably don't need Chinese Taipei. Like, there's a lot of squads where it's like, this could just be a nice, neat 8-team tournament. 8 teams, 2 pools, pool play, and then finals. The problem, though, is they want to have all these cool markets. So they want to have a San Juan market. Like, you see the bracket there. You got a San Juan pool, and then a Houston pool, and then a Tokyo pool, and a Miami pool. I don't know why the Dominican Republic can't just have their own, like, they're obviously the number 1 team in their pool. Why don't they just get their own, why can't they just play games in the Dominican Republic? There's not a stadium that's good enough to house a couple baseball games? Seems a little unfair. Because Puerto Rico's got a home base, and Miami, and the U.S. obviously is playing in, Houston. And Tokyo, obviously Japan's got their own place. And I'm not naive to know that there are obviously a ton of Dominicans in Miami. But guess what? There's also a lot of Venezuelans in Miami and a lot of Nicaraguans in Miami. So I don't like what. Yes, they'll have a home court advantage, but it's not as good as probably they would hope. But they get to, sell out that Marlins Stadium, which I'm sure is going to love the money and attention they're going to have. And that will be a great atmosphere. But it seems a little unfair to the Dominicans that they just can't get there as the unofficial number 1 seed of their region, that they don't get their own home base. Unless they chose Miami. I don't know. They could have. I have no idea how that worked out. That's the only thing I look at this. I'm like, that seems a little fishy. The Dominicans, they want to win this thing bad. Like, I kind of hope that they do well just for their own sakes, because they have taken it so personally how bad they've been at this. Like, you would think that they have so many great big stars. I think they've expected to win this thing and dominate in many years, and they've always disappointed and fallen short. And then seeing again how much those people were rocking during those what's the names? During those exhibition games. Shout out to my guy Seti. Peace out, Seti. Good to see you. I'm so happy that you were here to watch my show today. Really exciting. Good stuff. Hope to see you soon, Seti. I don't know. I hope for their sake they do okay. I hope that they play well, because they're gonna take it very personal if they don't. And it's kind of funny that they just take it so serious. I love it. It's great. It's great competition, man. It's great fun. But it's like, oh my gosh, this is like do or die for them. But this is gonna be great. I can't wait to watch the World Baseball Classic, man. That's gonna do it, man. Oh wow. Penultimate day done. Tomorrow is the last day of 40 days and 40 nights. Wow. Shout out to everybody watching on YouTube, New Generation Media. Shout out to everybody watching me on X, EJ_Stewart. And shout out to everybody watching me on Instagram, Action EJ. Thank you for rocking with me as we get into our final day tomorrow. Maybe we'll have a guest in the morning. Maybe we won't. We certainly will have Maggie and Perloff and Kendall on Sunday night. So that will be a lot of fun. This has been a blast. Can't believe we're near the end. I'm EJ Stewart, though. I'll see you soon.